Hi, it's Claude. We're back in the tiny kitchen, and this time around, we're going to make some amazing fried chicken. You can use boneless chicken, you can use bone-in chicken for this. We're going to make the boneless chicken this time around because I think I want to do something akin to those fried chicken sandwiches that have been making the rage the last year or so. The one from Popeyes, or I think the Chick-fil-A and the McDonald's have been making it too. But anyway, this is something we're really going to like, and there's a secret ingredient in here that is going to come as a little bit of a surprise to you. So what I've done is I've already measured out into my Pampered Chef mixing bowl a cup of buttermilk. Remember the waffles we made a little while ago? Here's what you do with the leftover buttermilk, because you usually have to buy that stuff by the quart. All right, into our buttermilk, we are going to measure out 1.5 teaspoons of kosher salt. And I've got the large measuring spoon from Pampered Chef here. I used to have the solid white ones in the big size too, but that one kind of gave up the ghost, and that was the end of that. All right, kosher salt, 1.5 teaspoons. In we go. All right, we're also going to add a little bit of granulated sugar, believe it or not much, to this cup of buttermilk. We're only going to add 1/4 teaspoon of that stuff. All right, that's going in. We've got some onion powder. And there's going to be 1/2 teaspoon of that. So I'm going to adjust my guy out like that. And this isn't science exactly. You know, it's more like art. So a little more, a little less. It doesn't matter too much. This is your basics, okay? 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. Now, where is my, there it is. So now garlic powder is kind of interesting because it really comes in 2 flavors. One is what you typically think of as garlic powder, which is granulated garlic, all right? The other is very, very fine stuff. I should actually show it to you because I do keep some, all right? And this stuff is genuine, honest to God powder. All right, and I actually like using this stuff, especially in sauces. It would go good in this, but I'm going to use the granulated stuff for this. 1/2 teaspoon of granulated garlic into our mixture there. Let me cap everybody up before I forget. Good. Paprika, 1/2 teaspoon of paprika. I don't know why some of these guys don't have shaker tops, but they don't. Okay. And 1/2 teaspoon of thyme. And if it seems like I have a lot of this stuff, you're right, I do. But I use it for another recipe that we're going to talk about at another time. And then here's where you can change up as you need. All right. The recipe calls for mustard. Okay. It calls for 1.5 tablespoons of Dijon, or basic prepared mustard. All right. I, on the other hand, like to use the dry stuff. And the reason is because I want this to be a little bit on the thick side, and I don't want to add any more liquid to it. So I add about 1 teaspoon. Whoop, there we go. Of dry mustard. So far, so good, right? Now, at this point, you can add any other things that you'd like to add to your mixture. If you want to put in, paprika, well, it's already paprika, and oregano, or basil, or any other herbs and spices. That's on you, all right? This actually does get the job done pretty well. But here is the secret ingredient. Okay, there's a product called Evercrisp, and the purpose behind Evercrisp is it basically not only helps make your chicken crunchy, it helps to keep it crunchy, and that's the important part. All right, Evercrisp is something called wheat dextrin, and you know what else is wheat dextrin? Benefiber, right? Fiber supplements. So So into this mixture, we are going to put 2 teaspoons of benefiber, believe it or not. All right. Gotta break out my whisk. Unfortunately for me, my Pampered Chef whisk is still in the dishwasher, so I gotta use this crummy one, which I'm gonna be replacing by getting a second Pampered Chef whisk. Okay, this is still pretty thin, right? We're gonna thicken it up now. 1/2 cup of flour, right here. Now this is a Pampered Chef prep bowl. This is the small prep bowl. It has markings on the side so you can actually measure stuff out, but as it happens, the bowls themselves have like a little bit of a lip here before they widen out, and you can't, they come with lids. You can put lids on these. Okay, that mark is exactly 1/2 cup, so you don't even have to break out a measuring cup to put it into this thing. Right there, 1/2 cup. And I'm gonna whisk that in to here. All right. And let me give you a look at that. See, what you got here is something that looks kind of like wallpaper paste. It's supposed to look like that. It's supposed to be that thick. And you also notice we only started with 1 cup of buttermilk, so it doesn't have a lot of quantity. That's okay too. All right. All right, our next step is to marinate the chicken. What I'm going to do is I could put the chicken into the bowl, put the cover on the bowl, but my chicken is still semi-frozen. So I'm going to run this a little bit backwards. So I've got my plastic bag here. I've got my chicken. It's actually 2 small zipper bags. Piece 1 goes in here. And frozen chunk of chicken number 2. In there. Still pretty much stuck together. All right. And we're going to take that and pour it into the bag over the chicken. And as the chicken defrosts, the marinade will get in and around that. But you're going to have to check on it every little once in a while. My goodness, I think I need a scraper. Don't yell at me. I'm still in the process of replacing my regular hand tools with Pampered Chef stuff. Because here's the thing, is every once in a while I'll buy a Pampered Chef piece just kind of on a whim or to have an extra. And I discover, holy cow, this thing is good. And then I wind up using it almost exclusively and eventually have to retire the other stuff. But it's still a work in progress. Okay, so my chicken is in. My marinade is in. I'm going to seal up that bag. Push out some of the air. There we go. And make sure whatever chicken is already exposed is coated with the stuff. Like I said, it's going to be thick. That's okay. It's supposed to be like that. All right. And this we're going to let sit. Overnight is best. Do a minimum of 6 hours. And I'll see you in a little bit. The chicken has been marinating for 4 hours and change, so that's nearly ready to go. It's doing its thing over there, and so since we are going to be doing a mock fast food chicken sandwich here, we need to put a little bit of sauce on it, and that's what we're going to do now. We are making a red pepper and garlic aioli, and aioli actually comes from Mediterranean cooking, and it means specifically garlic and olive oil emulsified together in with some other ingredients. Nowadays that meaning has changed, and it means pretty much anything with a mayonnaise base and garlic and whatever else you throw in. And that's certainly what we've got going on here. So let me show you what we're doing. From a pampered chef standpoint, this is where old meets new, because what I've got here is, this is new for me. This is the manual food processor, and it's really easy to use, and it's easy to clean, and I'm using it for more stuff than I actually thought I would, kind of like everything I do with the Pampered Chef. So what we're going to do is we are going to start with this here. These are roasted red peppers, and what I have in this jar is the equivalent of 2 of them, and I'm going to put those into our food processor. And with that, I am going to also put in some fresh basil. All right, this is roughly a half a cup. I really could use a little bit more, but this is about all I had left in my garden for this time of year. So that's the end of the garden basil for this season. All right, now if you're using a regular baby food processor, you're gonna pulse it just a little bit. You just want this to go until it's coarsely chopped and combined. And you can see it's actually going pretty quickly. Okay, we're not going too smooth yet. We just want big chunks still. All right, I'm going to give that a couple more. All right, into that we are going to add some lemon juice, 2 tablespoons. And this also is a Pampered Chef product for mini measuring. And what I like about it, let me put the lemon juice in. There was 2 tablespoons of that in there. And I don't know if you can see that. Maybe if I put something light colored behind it, but right there in the front is a gauge so that you can actually see what you're measuring from above. It's meant to be read from above, so that's pretty cool. All right, so we've got the lemon juice, and this recipe also typically calls for 3 cloves of garlic, but if you're anything like me, 3 cloves of garlic means, yeah, half a bulb coming up. So there's 3 cloves right now. They have to be peeled and they have to be halved. Those are going in. But I'm going to put in a couple more, and I, for that purpose, am going to use this. This is a little bit older, but this is a Pampered Chef garlic peeler, and it's just a silicone tube, and you put your garlic in. I like to lop off the bottom of the garlic, just to make this a little bit easier in the end. You put it in there, you put some pressure down, and roll it a few times, and then shake it out, and look, all the skin has come off. And you're left with a nice chunk of garlic, which I'm going to just lop in half. Throw in here. And I'm going to do one more, so I'm up to 5. Because I and my family like our stuff garlicky. Look how fast that goes. Boom, and boom, and boom. Okay. And we are going to be a little bit more vigorous with our chopping now. And if you think that leaf up there isn't bugging me, you'd be wrong. Oops, I missed. Now the grind is getting a little bit finer, and you can see already those big garlic halves have been reduced to smaller chunks. So I'm just going to spin it around there. All right. And now we're going to add some mayonnaise. This here is a 1.5 cups of mayonnaise. And once again, I have been able to use the gauge on the side of my bowl over here, which is impossible to read right now because there's mayonnaise in it. But we're going to put that in here. This about tests the limits of this particular food chopper. So if you're going to do anything bigger than this, you should do something a little bit more conventional. But this is good for the small jobs and stuff. So we're putting in that, and we are also going to add a little white sugar. So we've got our white sugar, 2 teaspoons. I'm going to adjust this guy down to 2 teaspoons. Get me some basic white sugar. Bloop, in you go. That away. And mix it through again. And again, I'm just kind of taking that red and turning it pink for the time being. As I said, we're sort of testing the limits of this thing, so it's not all mixing incredibly well, but it's getting the job done. All right, we've got a teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of pepper, black pepper, and I'm going to do the pepper first. And I'll tell you why. For no other reason than I wanted to talk about the salt a little bit. When you are cooking with salt, unless it says kosher salt, you should use your basic table salt. And the reason for that is that the kosher salt crystals are much larger, so you either have to compensate or you wind up with less salt than you really think you need. Don't be afraid of salt, by the way, okay? Anyway, teaspoon of salt, teaspoon of pepper. I'm going to use my spatula to just mix some of this down a little bit, because I can see that some of the stuff in the center has not really blended very well at all, despite how it looks on the outside. Okay. Now we're going to get just a little bit crazy here with the blending. So have fun with it. And at this point, the intent is really to bust up the bigger pieces into smaller ones. I'm not too deeply worried about it just yet. All right, one more ingredient. This here's the secret ingredient, okay? This stuff, this is called Emmeline's hot sauce, okay? Emmeline is the grandmother of a couple of girls with whom I went to college. And not long ago, they found their grandmother's recipe for the hot sauce, and they decided to bottle it, and it's like really good stuff. So check it out. You can go to emmelineshotsauce.com and tell them you got it from me. And I put in about, I'm going to call that a tablespoon of the stuff. This gives it a little bit of a kick. But what I found about Emmeline's is that it is especially good for giving stuff a little bit of a savory feel. So it's not just heat, it's got some flavor to it. So I would be more inclined to do this with like meat-based stuff than I would to say put it on my eggs. You know what I'm saying? Emmeline's hot sauce, give that a shot. Alrighty. This, by the way, is easily cleaned. This you should just wipe off with a damp cloth. But the whole bottom, you can put in the dishwasher if you like. All right, so I'm going to take this out of here. And I'm going to turn it out into one of my metal mixing bowls, just to give me a little bit of a better shot at blending it. Let me fish that blade out of there. Hold that. All right, and that, my friend, is pretty much our finished product. So what we're going to do is we are going to put this in the fridge, and we're going to let it think about it for a while. Let's get you a good view on that. Okay, so it's still got some chunkiness to it. That's okay. And in another couple hours, we're going to come back. We're going to make some chicken and turn it into some fine sandwiches, okay? See you soon. We are about ready to turn this chicken into a chicken sandwich. So I've already taken the chicken out of the bag and I've put it into the bowl over here. All right, squidged out as much of the marinade as I could. So it's still sitting there wet with stuff on it. Okay, in this bowl I have about a half a cup of flour, not very much. And you might have to use a little bit, make a little bit more. I've already added a teaspoon of kosher salt, and I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. Using cornstarch on your meat, by the way, is called silking. And it's one of the things that makes Chinese cooking of meat kind of a neat thing. Use my mini whisk to mix that all together. So there's really not a lot in there for the dredging, because most of what you're getting is going to be in the battery stuff. All right, put my cornstarch away. And I've got my oil preheating over here. When I am frying stuff like this, I like to use the electric fry pan, largely because I am not very good at maintaining the temperature of the oil in which I fry. And that is pretty important when it comes to this sort of thing. So move our stuff over here, and I need to get a plate out. All right. And, oh, let me talk a little bit about this. I remember, like in one of my older videos, I did complain a little bit about the Pampered Chef tongs, specifically that they have this lock on here, which is gravity fed. It kind of went counter to how I store my tools. But as I mentioned, I'm in a little bit of a transition period. Look at this. This is my old set of tongs. Okay, this has a lock which basically is in the base of the handle. And these guys are basically metal all the way down, and then they have these rubber jobbies that are set in. But you can see this has happened in the last couple of months, is that the rubber is starting to crumble and fall out, and not very good. So if I put these down and they get anywhere hot, I'm getting burned. These fellas have the, I think it's silicone, it's heat-proof stuff though. And so this end doesn't get hot in the first place, which means the heat doesn't transmit up as quickly. And what's more, these never get especially hot, which is really, really nice. They're also made of a heavier gauge stuff. This actually, even though it's smaller, weighs more than this. But for today, I got to use both of them. So we're going to use this one with the hot stuff, this one with the not so hot stuff. All right, check on my oil. My oil is just about up to speed now, so we're good there. And again, it works kind of like the waffle iron. When the light changes, you know you're good to go. So we've got our chicken. And I'm going to change camera angle so you can see a little bit better what's going on. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm getting our chicken out of here. And you can see these are full-size chicken breasts, because that's kind of the thing they do with these fast food chicken sandwiches. They want big pieces of the chicken. That said, I'm a little uncomfortable with that size exactly, so I'm going to cut these down just a little bit on the fly here. Move my stuff out of the way. Get myself a big honking knife, and I'm just going to do this right out of camera range here. And I'm just going to take this, I'm just going to cut it in half. Thus, so it's still got the thickness, just doesn't have the whole diameter thing going on. All right, make sure it's coated on all sides, dredge it into the flour. And the key for this is to make sure that every bit of the chicken gets coated in the flour mixture, because if you have any moisture sticking out, it's going to make a mess in the oil. Put that to the side. Get the next piece. And when I do this, I like to do it in very small batches. So I'm only doing a couple of pieces at a time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull another one out, cut that up while those guys are sitting there resting for a minute, because some of that flour is going to get absorbed into the mixture. And so what I'm going to do is actually dredge it a second time. Okay, you can see how it's changed color a little bit. So give it another dip. Give it another dip. And into the oil. And this is not ridiculously deep oil, by the way. Okay, some of the chicken is actually sticking out. And we're okay with that. All right. This being boneless chicken, it's going to go, maybe 3-4 minutes on one side, 3-4 minutes on the other. You can actually gauge it a little bit between the thermostat on the oil and just the general color. You wanted a nice golden brown color because it wants to be attractive. Okay, so we're going to check it out on the other side. All right, gang, our chicken has been in here about 7.5 minutes, something like that. It looks to be up to speed. I turned it over about 3.5 minute mark. It's looking pretty good. Now, if you are using bone-in chicken, obviously it's going to take much longer, but it's about good for this stuff. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this. This is another important component, okay? If you're going to put some aside until you have enough to serve everybody, what you want to do is when you take it out, you want to put it on a rack that's on top of a cookie sheet or something similar. Right? You don't want to let it sit in the paper towels because then wherever the chicken is contacting the paper towels, it's going to get all soggy. Don't want that. You want the oil to just drip down into the pan, and this is going to be nice and crispy. Put this in a very slow oven, about 180 degrees. And I'm ready for the next one, which I dredged once. Now I'm going to dredge again and into ghee oil. Maybe don't splash it the way I did there. Alright. And that's going to go for about 7 or 8 minutes. So I'm not going to make you watch all that. We're going to come back on the other side when I've got these 2 plus another 4 that I've got waiting. And I am going to cover this. I'm not going to cover it tightly, just to keep down any potential spattering. You know, you want to keep the mess down a little bit, but you also don't want it all the way locked in. All right, that can get ugly. You want it to be able to vent out a little bit, but this will help hold in the heat and just keep some of the mess down. All right, see you in a few. Okay, gang, so we are definitely in the home stretch here. The chicken is done. It's been keeping warm in the oven. All the pieces are cooked up. I also have some buns here. I used oversized. These are the Martin's potato buns. I used the big guys with the sesame seeds on top. I brushed them with some clarified butter, and I stuck them under the broiler to give them a little bit of color there. I tried doing this with ciabatta bread, and it wound up being just a little bit too dense for me. I think brioche would be a good choice. I haven't had an opportunity to try it because we have an allergy issue in the house, and I can't find allergy-safe brioche, so I got to figure that one out. So I'm trying this with the Martin's buns this time around. And we've got the aioli that we made earlier. There it is, still looking lovely. And we're just going to smear a little bit of this on the bread. Thus, and put our chicken on the bottom. Thus, and there you go. We've got ourselves a sandwich. Of course, you can use, lettuce or whatever else. If you want to continue to emulate the fast food sandwich, you can put some pickles on it. Those guys all use like the thick cut, crinkle style. My family just likes to use relish. So that's what they're going to be doing tonight, in addition to the aioli that is already on the sandwich. So that's chicken sandwich, all right? And not only that, you can still use that whole marination, batter, blah, 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 blah bit for fried chicken as well. And like I said, using that secret ingredient that I told you about earlier not only keeps it crispy now, but later on, when you're eating it cold, it stays crispy. All right? Bon appetit. Talk to you soon.